All right, guys, we are live.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Paul Wilson here with eSkate Shop. I'm online with eSkater from London and Sean Wendland out in California. How's it going, Squishy? What's
How's it
up,
going,
everybody?
guys?
It's
Good to see you.
good. Early morning in London, but waking myself up.
We definitely appreciate you setting this up. It is a little bit later for you. It's what, 1 a.m. out there for you?
Don't worry, I'll survive.
Sean, how about you? What have you been up to this Sunday afternoon?
Oh, I've been raking leaves all day. It's about dinner time.
Raking leaves. I'm in the Midwest in the U.S. here, so like raking leaves at this time of the year is a joke. It's I think probably -4 with the wind chill outside right now. It is
Oh,
cold.
no, thank you.
Yeah.
No, California has like two seasons, and I think like fall happened sometime there, and we're into winter.
E-skater, how about you, man? Good riding weather still? You still getting out on the board this time of year?
It's pretty cold and it's been really difficult to make eboard videos. But, I've put my gloves on and I've got out in the winter in London and done my best. I've got a cool wheel video coming out tomorrow, hopefully. So keep posted for that.
Really? I'm excited. I'm a cool wheel fan. I got one behind me right there. That's my normal rider. Okay, so this is something that came up to me if we're going to be talking today, just kind of in general, guys, about a lot of upgrades that we're starting to see for electric skateboards. And the first thing that pops up is you say that last time I was out and it was this cold and there's no snow or salt on the ground, the PUs, man, they don't warm up. You don't get any stick on them. So the harder I was carving, I was actually starting to lose traction and the board slide across the cold concrete. How is it out there by you? Is it that brittle cold? Are you losing traction with this weather?
I've not had it happen yet. Although I was trying some of those, what is it, MPS sort of cross wheels, the ones that are street and off-road.
Yeah.
And with those ones, I was sliding a little bit, especially on the street. But with my regular street wheels, I ride the ABEC 107s, and they were pretty good. I didn't have any sliding on those.
Sean, I don't know how far up in elevation you would have to go to even find cold weather. Now you're Northern California,
Oh,
so you do
well,
have
no,
the
it's been cold. It's been cold enough. I think it's been in the 40s, Fahrenheit, that is, for you guys in England. But I've been running the classic wheels from ABEC 11 with no problems. No problems at all. It's just been so cold with your hands and your face, in the wind.
right, right. Yeah, well, one of the things that I think comes up big when we're talking about upgrades is what kind of wheels can I go to? And usually the threads I'm reading, they want to know about fitment. Like, can I fit the 107s? Can I go smaller? What's the difference? When you start having somebody ask you about wheel upgrades, what do you start digging into there, eSkater?
Well, first of all, I make sure they're not talking about hub motor board. A lot of the
Right.
guys on Facebook, they're asking, how can I upgrade my hub motor board? And realistically, you got to buy new hubs if it's hub motor, or you got to change it into a belt motor. And the other thing is, even if they've got a belt motor system, quite a lot of the time they move from say 83 millimeters, which was pretty standard, maybe last year, and they want to put 107s or 97s on the board. And usually they're belt protectors. They have an issue fitting with new belt protectors. There's not enough space. And actually, one of the guys in eSkate UK came out with an ingenious hack to solve this problem, okay? This guy called Dave Wood, he said, put sandpaper around the end of your wheel, okay? So he wraps his wheel in sandpaper, and then he gets his belt protector, and he runs the board full speed, and then he uses the wheel to actually sand the belt protector down. And it's crazy that it works, but a lot of the guys have been doing that. So it's quite interesting, really.
That's genius. What a slick way to take care of it.
It's a bit of a
Yeah,
hack.
even on the Hobby King setup that just doesn't even have a full cover, just a tiny part over the wheel, or over the motor pulley, you have to cut that with a Dremel, just a couple of millimeters off of it because it rubs on the wheel as well. Most of them will.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the benefits of going to a larger wheel? What changes in the ride once I upgrade my wheels to say it? I think we're all talking about ABEC 107s here. So once I go to that, what do I get from it?
Well, you can run over anything. You can run over railroad track crossings. I've hit branches, pieces of metal, small children. It just takes it, and it's such a soft urethane, that reflex urethane. It forms or conforms to anything, and it sheds rocks. It throws them to the side. But it's just safe. It's just safer. You know, anybody that rides a skateboard is hit a rock and then had that you know, thing where you fall on your face. But with a 107, you pretty much, it's just not there anymore. That fear is gone because the wheel is so big. A 97 and up, the 107 and the 97, I would say you're pretty safe. The 90, you can still hit, you know, a fair, you know, like a half-inch rock. It'll stop it still.
Yeah.
The other thing is obviously speed. You're going to get slightly more speed. And then the acceleration and torque going up the hill is going to be a little bit slower, you know, a little bit less. But you do get a small speed upgrade, obviously, going to bigger wheels. I don't know, have any of you guys tried ABEC clones, any kind of these clones in 97 or 107?
I have. I've tried the 83 and also the 97, and it's just I even have one that's not even poured right. You can put it on an axle and spin it, and you can see that it wobbles. It's like it doesn't even come from the factory even straight. It was ridiculous. And I also have to drill them for a lot of mounts because the holes don't line up for a lot of wheel pulleys, aftermarket stuff that I've gotten a hold of. Whereas an ABEC 11, from ABEC 11, it drops in and fits every time. There's just a little bit differences in the core. I don't know what it is, tolerances. But the PU as well, the rubber on it is the urethane is much harder. It's also a really poor recipe and compound. So it chunks and gets rocks in it. I've actually got rocks stuck into it, like, and then you're riding and it feels like you got a nail in your tire. But I've never had that happen with an ABEC 11.
I noticed the ABEC 11s, they're 74A. And most of the clones are either 78 or 84A, so they're a little bit harder.
You can't trust the durometers. You would have to go. You could trust the durometers like within a company, right? Like within one brand, the durometers are going to be accurate as a comparison to the ones next to it. But when you go from brand to brand, or even these clones, they really can just make up anything when it comes to durometer, and it has nothing to do with the way it rides. Also, the recipe of the urethane.
Like that with falsifying from China. Come on, man! All of the stuff, all of the knockoffs we get from China, 100% accurate. Believe anything on the box or written on Amazon.
Well, it's like C rating. It's like C rating on a lot of battery. I've seen like 140 C batteries. Like, yeah, right.
Is there any other wheel companies that you guys might recommend apart from ABEC?
The other core that's really popular is the Kegel core. And the reason I say the Kegel core is because that core is now being used in a lot of wheels. I think there's some coming out that are going to be 110, but there's also another company that uses it in the longboarding world, popular downhill wheels that you can get in that core.
Yeah. Other than that, no, ABEX has been the only thing that I've ever messed with or anything that I've ever taken a look at, to be honest with you. They're kind of the market leader in that space, right? Like if you want good wheels, that's pretty much what everybody's going to recognize.
Oh yeah. Okay. There's the luge guys, you know, the downhill luge guys that don't stand up, and they've gotten to well over 100 miles an hour on ABEC 11. So it's like, okay, they're not going to fall apart and kill you. They're proven.
Yeah. It's hard to find anybody else at that type of testing. And I guess when testing comes up, the other thing I always think about is batteries, because just like we were just talking about, like it's a joke. I mean, I was just reading some poor guy who went through his Evolve. I think this was back in June on the forum, but like went through his Evolve and built a whole new battery setup for it, extended his case by 25 millimeters and all this new setup. And he's going to I think 10S4P, and 3/4 of the way through the post, somebody posts like, hey, you know, those are flashlight batteries. They're not anywhere near what you fucking need. Like,
yeah.
You know what you fucking need. It was heartbreaking. I mean, to see like this guy's post, like this long thread, he had awesome instructions on like how to do everything. He had thought this out really, really well. Like he put time into this. Like this was a big project for him. And at the end of it, somebody was able to just look on and spot and like, hey, do some reviews of what those ultra fires actually are, right? Like,
I've seen those, Paul. I've seen those. But if you want to play it safe. I think there's a Sony VT9 or something that's pretty good. I'm not sure that's the exact number, but there's also the Samsung 25Q if you want to save a little bit of money, or there's the Samsung 30Q if you want more performance. And they're pretty decent, proven brands.
Well, that's the heartbreaking thing here, is because like with wheels are relatively affordable. I mean, what's a set of ABAC 11s cost retail? Anybody?
About $150.
Okay, 150.
107s.
Right, the 107. What are you into for a whole new battery setup to custom buy all the $8 minimum a battery? Like, it gets pricey. It gets pricey fast, and it's the lifeblood of the whole rig. Like,
I'd say most people are going to spend $500 for a quality battery. There's just no way around it.
Right.
Are you talking 10S 4P Samsung Q30 kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to custom build a battery at home, why go cheap? You know what I mean? Why buy the shit batteries? Like, you already have a battery that works in your board if you have an OEM board. Like, if you're riding an Evolve, like, it's already got a battery. Why would you build a shitty battery or a knockoff?
And those batteries are on the market too. There's battery builders out there that'll sell you one of those for $500. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think another problem with upgrading your Evolve battery is, if you take it back to Evolve for another reason, say your ESC starts not working with your remote, they might not be quite as happy to, fix your board when you've done modifications that they don't recommend or they're recommending against.
Yeah, I've heard that. I also heard they have a special BMS that talks to their other board, and so you have to have a specific equipment to even change just the battery.
What people are doing is they're getting the existing battery and they're taking the BMS out of that, and then they're putting it on the new battery. Actually, Evolve do not sell the BMS, so I think that's the only way you can get it.
Right.
Interesting.
That's exactly what I was reading on this guy's thread. Yeah, this guy who went through again just a heartbreaking story, and at the end of it, he ended up having to kind of rebuild everything because now you're stuck. Now you have essentially an $1,800 paperweight, right?
Well, yeah, and he bought like 60 cells or something, right? How many did he buy?
Yeah, exactly. You're not returning them. So I think that is my recommendation. Like, anybody who's ever reached out to me and asked about what should I do for a battery upgrade, I tell them reach out to one of the custom battery builders. If you got an Evolve, I know Long Hair Boy has had quite a bit of attention for doing the battery upgrades himself and things like that. But personally, unless you've done a couple of DIY builds or gone 50 kilometers on a home build or something, I wouldn't fuck with it. I would buy a battery that was ready to plug in, from somebody else.
Yeah, that's what I do. I mean, I don't have a way to build. I can solder really well, and I will build batteries. But when I first got started, I didn't want to build the battery, and so I just bought the balance board, the cheap balance board batteries with the BMS in it, and it's already built. And I just like, hey, I need a bigger one, so I'll wire a bunch together. And so you can do it plug and play if you just want to change the plugs. There's battery solutions out there still. And there's also lithium polymer. A lot of people use those, just Hobby King batteries.
So I just bought all the equipment, the spot welder, the nickel strips, the wrapping, some Best Tech BMSs, just to give it a go. So I'm going to give that a go in the next few weeks. And there's a guy who does Evolve upgrades in the Eastgate UK group, Kevin Dark. He's been helping me buy some of the components. And there's another guy, was it Rainer Butcher from Germany? And he posted a video where he actually managed to fit was it 10S 5P battery into a Evolve Carbon GT, and he posted the video. But he basically had to redo the screw holes because it's a bigger battery than normally fits in one of those boards.
Yeah.
But he did manage it, and it seemed like quite a professional job from watching the video.
So you're going to upgrade it yourself. You're doing it at home then, right?
Well, I'm not necessarily going to upgrade my Evolve. I'm just trying to build a battery for a DIY board that I was going to work on.
Okay. Why not upgrade the Evolve? What's the matter?
Well, I just feel like I'm going to keep it stock for now. I mean, what happens if you turn up to the Evolve World Cup with a modified battery? Are they going to let you in, or are they going to tell you, you got to go all the way back to England?
Yeah, they are one of the only companies where it's a complete, proprietary setup, all balanced to be, built with itself, and then they're all under warranty, and they don't want you to mess with it.
I mean,
How
I don't
is
want
the
to be
work?
unfair to Evolve. They are a great company, but it is what it is. What do you guys think about Boosted though? Some of their batteries, their battery, the new extended battery, is a bit of a flop, and a lot of people are looking for other solutions to make it go a lot further.
I Chicago who's doing a booster box or boosted box, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool idea. There's a ton of DIY stuff, so it's like that one's pretty simple as far as extending the range. The boosted board compared to everything else, stock has such a short range. I would think it's a huge market because everybody with them, those things, they're done after 5-7 miles at the pool.
Yeah. When we do group rides, we have to have special stops just for, say, boosted or maybe backfire boards, whereas the Evolver is still sitting at, 70, 80%, and the Metro board's sitting at 90%.
I went on one of those rides recently in San Francisco, and they have actually have a map with all the charging stations they've spotted all around the city, and it's funny seeing 16 people wander up into a mall food court and all plug in their boards everywhere. It's kind of funny to see, but they'll hang out for until they charge up and then head back out, like finish a loop or something. But I didn't have to charge at all. I could obviously go all day.
Yeah, I've seen your board. Yeah. It's huge battery on that thing.
Okay, so I've taken a look, upgrading the wheel, upgrading the battery. I think those are like two big ones that he kind of considers. I think if you've ever done a DIY and then you bought a stock board, you might consider a deck swap. And I start to see more and more guys kind of poking around at that. It kind of seems like that's what Carvon is really built on, is taking some of the cool wheel components like the battery and things like that, and then putting their own drive system on it and marketing it, which I love. Idea. Honest with you, like I think I'm with maybe a few of us here. E-Skater, I know you weren't big into skateboarding before electric skateboarding, right? Like it's not like you were a diehard skateboarder 5 years ago and then got an electric skateboard.
That's right.
So,
I learned.
What do you look for a deck? I have a cool wheel behind me on boosted boards. They have those are cool too, but I would like. I don't even know what to look for if I was going to look for a deck swap. How about you, Squishy? You've had some experience in this one.
It would definitely be what it's going to be used for. Decks are like every single part on a skateboard. It's purpose built. Like there's, I don't know, like 30, 40 different kinds of skateboards that you can make. And so there's tons of options out there. And each one is built for a specific purpose. So if you're trying to translate that over to electric skateboarding, some of the things you may want to do with it. The first things that come to mind are kicktails. Obviously some people like kicktails. They can do kick turns. They want to be able to pop it up even into their hand, whatever. I personally like a kicktail because I can put my toe underneath it and I can lift up a heavy board and kind of point it in the direction I want to go at the intersections. Some people like narrow boards. Some people like wide boards. It really is all in the preference. When I started doing the long distance, I discovered that having like all that bacon concave and W and all this fancy new longboarding stuff was actually not good on my feet, but cramp up my feet. So I found like the flattest board I could possibly get was the most comfortable board. And so it really does matter. And it is kind of preference. If you're just a longboarder, you're just going to stand on it and commute. Listen, just like what you have behind you, the cool wheel, something like that with cutouts, with no wheel bite, something like that. It's simple. There's a purpose for all the designs. So, and with the options of decks, it's kind of a way to personalize your deck, and it kind of says something about what you want to do with it,
Sure.
I find a lot of people, because Boosted was so popular on YouTube, you know what I mean? If you look at the Google Trends, Boosted was more popular in electric skateboarding last year. And a lot of people got obsessed with the whole flex thing because people were saying, it's flex, and they were advertising the flex. When actually, it wasn't always what you needed. Do you know what I mean? The flex, it's great for some tricks, bouncy tricks, but it doesn't really make the ride that much smoother. You know what I mean?
Flex is mostly for comfort, going over cracks and bumps. The vibration that'll kill your feet over the long run. And if you ride a 9-ply or 10-ply super stiff downhill deck. Try it. Try putting your electric setup on a downhill deck and go riding 10 miles. Your feet will be in 10 times more pain than they would be with a flexible deck. So that's
to be fair.
Yeah.
I have got flat decks. I don't find it's that bad for me.
Mm.
The one thing for me though is in the US size, I'm like size 14 feet, size 14 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So I need a fairly wide deck, you know, like the Evolve deck, quite wide. That works pretty good for me. Or I try to get wide decks.
No, and that's exactly right. Like a smaller person, they can ride a 9-inch or an 8.5-inch deck. Somebody like you or me, we're gonna like a 10-inch, 11-inch deck sometimes, and they get even wider than that. It is kind of your foot though. You know, people with a bigger foot, they're gonna want a bigger deck.
Another thing about flexible decks, Sean, if you're building batteries, you got to make sure the battery is also flexible and it's not going to break with the flexible deck.
Yes, exactly. And on mine, I actually have a foam, probably about a 1/2-inch gasket foam around the battery box, and then it's mounted at the front and the back. So the deck is the deck's actually really flexy. It's a pumping deck, so it generates energy off of it for doing downhill slalom and things. And so it just needs to bend, and it would totally break the box if I didn't allow that play in there. But you have to allow that play in some way. I've seen battery boxes that are segmented in a couple places, so the box actually flexes with the board. There's lots of ways to do it. The custom boards that you make and you router out, place for the batteries and things, a lot of people don't really make them thin and flexy enough, and then they go to put the cover on, and it makes it even more rigid. So you kind of have to build some flex into it when you're doing the do-it-yourself stuff.
I seen Long Hair Boy showed me a picture, and there's a different wiring for the flexible batteries for the Samsung 30Q kind of style. And also he's using an autoclave machine. I think it's autocarb or something like that, and it's a machine that automatically cuts a sort of bevel into the deck of the Evolve, so you can fit the larger battery packs.
That's cool, like a CNC machine. You could cut out wheel wells, you could cut out, micro drops for your trucks, all kinds of cool stuff. You can do that with a hand router. I use a Dremel, and you can do a lot of that stuff. We've done that to my my new setup that we're building. We had to router out the entire deck, the entire bottom of it, to fit the batteries in deeper.
I mean, don't you fear about cut out to sink that in there?
What was that? I'm sorry, you cut out.
Sorry, I know we're losing our connection a little bit here, guys. But yeah, so I was just wondering, like, if you're talking about actually using a router and shaving the board to fit deck and to kind of what I would imagine is basically gaining background clearance, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Like, how much do you take off before you start worrying about ruining the integrity of the board, splitting the board, getting a weak spot on the battery?
What we did is it's the deck is tuned with wood, but it's actually going to be carbon fiber once we're done. So it's reinforced entirely with carbon fiber over the wood, the entire board, and then tuned that way.
Gotcha.
I think with the Evolve, like the GTXs and the GTs, you can, once you fit the batteries in there, it is okay, but you don't want to go too far. There is a fine line. And if you add a little bit of foam and don't go too deep into the deck, it really helps you not split the deck when you're bouncing on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I think the last thing I really wanted to head up tonight was talking about ESCs. Again, I kind of call the battery the lifeblood of the skateboard because you got to have it. And I've had faulty ESCs and still made it back and forth to where I was going. But, like, this is a big deal, and we're starting to see it become more and more of a big deal as customization grows, and obviously as the DIY market has gotten better and better throughout the years. So I think regardless whether you have an Evolve, boosted, a Cool Wheel, whatever you have, what do you start to think about when you hear somebody asking about ESCs?
Pretty much there's just the VSC. That's the only one in the game, for me at least.
Well, nowadays we have a couple of options when it comes to that. Go ahead and Google Vesk or jump on Amazon and try to buy just a Vesk. There's a ton of different Do I go with a Fox box from Inertian? Do I get
Yeah.
someone who just list a vest? Like, do I go and buy one from Trampa? You know, what's the difference here?
I think it's cooling and
is.
reliability.
Yeah, and there's also some clones with bad components. There, I don't know exactly where the pictures are, but there is some pictures. There's a comparison between a clone and a good one, and you can just simply look at the components and tell. So there's just certain ones on eBay, I would say, and on Amazon maybe, but most of the name brand like Maytech, Hobby King, the Foxbox, I mean, there's so many that people are having, a great time out there running.
Yeah.
They work just
However,
fine.
Okay.
if you could run one of these, you see on eBay, dual drive ESC, it says fuck, and it's like $40, you know? If you could actually build an electric skateboard that was good with one of these things, I've not tried them all out. I'm going to order some and try them, but you could really reduce the price of an electric skateboard if they were good.
I wonder what the amp rating's on. I mean, they could be like 25, 30 amps versus a 50 amp. So they might be great for a small motor, single motor, certain setups that they might be designed for. But if you want to have a lot of power, climb the hills in San Francisco, go 40 miles an hour, then it might not do those things.
I mean, it is a good point, though, because the Foxbox isn't cheap. I mean, I was looking at it if you want to run a dual setup, you're $120 a crack. I mean, that's just, again, you're $240 into just the computers. You still need a remote and transmitter and everything else, that gets expensive with the board. So, yeah, I mean, if you could find one so far, as I heard had any success with like the cheap Chinese clone stuff, are guys replacing their Coup Wheels ESCs. So guys who had the original D3M or the very first version of them and all the ESCs went bad. A lot of those guys went onto eBay, bought a clone, so not directly from Coup Wheel because it was on back order, and then they put the clone in and it worked perfect. They started as a clone, so like I guess that kind of makes sense, right? But anybody else, I haven't read any great stories, no success stories at this point. So I definitely will be interested to watch eSkater here to see if you come up with something cool.
Well, I'm going to test. I haven't found any ones that are great yet, but I'm certainly willing to gamble $40 here and there and try them out.
Awesome, guys. Well, I know those were the major points I wanted to cover tonight. Squishy, any shout outs before we get wrapping up here?
Shout outs. Not really, just to my sponsors, Hobby King. You can get that VESC. I think they have a little bit of a older hardware version. They have one for like $80. So if you wanted to get onto the FOC modes and check it out, you can do that pretty cheap. Avenue Trucks, ABEC 11 wheels like we've been talking about. Yeah. Helter Skelter Hybrids, these carbon fiber my board. You guys have checked that out in the forums. And a shout out to all the guys in the forums where I learned everything I know from. So
eSkater, how about you, man? How can people get in contact with you and follow more of your content?
Well, they can always come up to my YouTube channel, YouTube/eSkater, ESKAR. I'll give a shout out to my regular crew, eSkate UK here in the UK. And I'll also give a shout out to Kevin Dark for helping me build my batteries. Hopefully I'll make a success of it in the coming weeks.
Good stuff. Guys, my name's Paul Wilson, and this is eSkate Shop Podcast. We're live on eSkater's YouTube channel. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Have a great evening.
It's been a pleasure, guys.
Laters.